Welcome to everyone. Uh, this is our continuation of previous video. In our previous video, we have discussed the introduction part, statement, and assumptions part of the Recardian theory of rent. In this video, we will continue the discussion on the same topic, that is Recardian theory of rent. In this, we have the discussion on the fourth part, that is explanation, and the last one, criticisms. Okay, criticisms. Let's begin the discussion. The first one is say explanation. To explain this theory, David Ricardo has took an hypothetical example for the best, say the better understanding of the theory. Let us assume that there is a newly discovered island exist, okay, exist, and some people go to a newly discovered island and settle down there. Okay, there is a newly discovered island or say region on which there are some people or say group of people went and settled down in that island, and that island has the four grades of land. That grades can be classified, say land, A grade land, B grade land, C grade land, and D grade land. In these grades, A being most fertile land, and on other hand D being least fertile land. Okay, and rent arises due to difference in fertility of land. Okay, we will discuss how the rent exactly arises according to David Ricardo with the example. Just remember this concept. There is a newly discovered island which has four grades of land, say namely A grade land, B grade land, C grade, and D. A being most fertile and D being least fertile, and rent arises due to the difference between the fertility of land. Okay, this is the story. Just remember it. We will discuss with an example. This theory can be explained with the help of a table. In this table, we can see a first column represent lands in grades. We have four grades of land, that is A, B, C, and D. Second column, that is production in quintals, say quintal, production of what? Production of say food grains. We have 20 quintals, 15, 10, and 5. Lastly, rent, third column represent rent of each say grades of land. We will discuss this part later. Just have a look on these two columns first. Okay, here in our story, we have a newly discovered region. Okay, in that region there are some people, group of people went and settled down in their island. Okay, for to fulfill their demand for food grains, they cultivate first more fertile land, that is A grade land. Why? Because land is abundant and idle, there is no need to pay rent in this type of newly discovered island. Why? Because land can be get freely without any paying amount to some other person. Okay, at that time they cultivate first most fertile land. Most fertile land, in our example A is the most fertile land. That is the reason in the first instance they cultivate A grade land, and A grade land can produce 20 quintal of food grains. Okay, 20 quintal of food grains, or say rice. Okay, rice. Here there is a no need to pay rent because land is in abundant, or say very large in supply. That is the reason there is no need to pay rent for A grade land. Suppose another group of people goes and settle down in the same island after some time, hence the demand for agriculture produce will increase, The most fertile land, that is A grade land, alone cannot produce all the food grains that are needed on account of the operation of the law of diminishing return. So, the less fertile land with compared to A, that is we have the B grade land is a less fertile with compared to A. Now the people cultivate or say the land B grade land will have to be brought under the cultivation in order to meet the demand for growing population for the same amount of labor and capital employed in A grade land. The yield per acre on B grade land is say 15 quintal food grains. Okay, 15 quintal say food grains. The surplus of 5 quintal per acre appears on the A grade land, that is 20 minus 15 remains 5. 5 is a surplus say production of A grade land. Here A grade land can get a rent. Why? Because there is a difference between the fertility of land A and B. A can produce 20 quintal of food grains and B have only 15 quintals of food grain. According to David Ricardo, here B grade land is a marginal land or say no rent land, and on other hand A grade land can get the surplus production, that is called rent according to David Ricardo. Here 20 minus 15 we have 5 as a rent to the A grade land. Okay, like according to need when the again population increases, the C grade land also brought under the cultivation and it yields say 10 quintal of food grains. In this the C grade land becomes the marginal land. Now the A grade land as well as the B grade land can get the rent, can get the rent or say can yield surplus production. That is say here when we cultivate a C grade land, A grade land can get 10 quintal of surplus, that is rent, and B grade land can get 5 quintal of food grains as a rent. Okay, as a rent. Next, suppose yet another group of people goes and settle down in the same island. So the least fertile land, now the least fertile land, that is D grade land. D grade land will have to be brought under cultivation to fulfill the fulfill the demand of the growing population. For the same amount of labor and capital, the yield per acre on the D grade land is say 5 quintal of food grains. Okay, food grains. Here the in this when we cultivate the D grade land, the surplus of A grade land is now raised to 15 quintal. Okay, this can be see in the third column. Okay, 20 minus 5 is equal to 15. Now A grade can get 15 quintal production as a rent. On other hand, next we have B grade land can get 10 quintal as a rent, and C grade land can also get 5 quintal production or food grains as a rent. Here D grade land is a marginal land or say no rent land. Its production is equal to its cost of production. That is the reason it cannot get any rent. It is a marginal land. Okay, marginal land. This is called marginal land, and these three lands, those lands which are getting the rent are called intra marginal land. These three lands are called intra marginal land. On other hand, this one D land is called marginal land. Okay, marginal land. Therefore we can conclude that The rent indicates the differential advantage of superior lands over the marginal land. Okay, marginal land. This is the concept given by David Ricardo, and the same explanation or same example uh, can be explained with the help of diagram, with the help of diagram, or say diagrammatic representation of the Recardian theory. In this theory we can see on the OX axis, that is horizontal axis, we have grades of land. On the vertical axis, that is OY axis, we have production in quintal. Okay, in quintal. Okay, the area, say A grade here, A grade land production is 20 quintal, B grade land production is 50, C grade land production is 10, and lastly the marginal land production is only 5 quintal. The same example, just we have to show in the diagram, diagrammatical form. Here the shaded area is represent rent for the respective lands, and this is no rent land area represent the marginal land, that is a D grade land. Okay, D grade land. Next one, we have another slide to this explanation, that is when price is given. Okay, in previous slides we have only discussed the rent in the form of say production or quantity. Now when the price is given, how to calculate the rent? Okay, here the example is same, that is we have 4 grades of land, that is A, B, C, D, and the production also same here in quintals, 20, 15, 10 and 5 for each land, that is A, B, C, D, and the price is given say 200. It is remains constant for all the say production of lands, it is 200, and for using this price we can calculate the rent in rupees. Okay, rent in rupees. Say first we have to calculate TR. TR is nothing but the total revenue, and next we have TC. TC is total cost. Here total cost represents the cost of production. Here to calculate TR, the formula is Q into P, quantity into price. Here quantity is with respect to A grade land, quantity we have 20 quintal and price is 200. 200 into 20 is equal to 4000. This is the total income of A grade land. Next 15 into 200, we have 3000 revenue for the B grade land. Next 10 into 200 is equal to 2000 is a revenue of C grade land, and the lastly we have D grade land, that is 5 into 200 is equal to 1000 as a revenue of D grade land. Okay, the cost of production is also given, that is 1000. In our assumptions we have discussed that the cost of production remains constant for all the grades of land, it cannot change, it remains same, that is say here given as a 1000 is a cost of production or total cost. Now to calculate the rent of each respective grade of land, we have to minus total cost of production from the total revenue. Here we have to deduct total cost from total revenue, total cost from total revenue, that is say the A grade land has 4000 as a revenue, 4000 as a revenue, and the cost is say 1000. When we deduct 1000 from 4000, we can get 3000 as a rent for A grade land. Okay, rent for A grade land. Next for B grade we have 3000 as a total revenue and 1000 total cost. When we deduct total cost from total revenue, we can get 2000 as a rent for B grade land. Next C, that is 2000 minus 1000 is equal to 1000 is a revenue for C grade land. And the lastly we have that is D grade land. This is marginal land or say no rent land. Here the revenue, total revenue is equal to total cost. That is the reason the D grade land cannot get any rent. Okay, any rent. This is the concept of David Ricardo. In the next slides we have our last part, that is say criticisms of the theory. The original and indestructible power of soil. This is not true because the reason is that the fertility of land is not original, okay, but the result of it is a result of human efforts. If you want to increase the capacity of the land, the effort must and should be made by the human beings. Okay, that is the reason this theory is criticized. This is the first one. Second one, we have the cultivation of land goes on descending order of its fertility. Okay, fertility, but in the reality it depends upon the situation, not fertility. We cultivate land according to our needs, not the fertility of lands. This is the second one. Next, rent also enters into price. In reality, the price itself includes the amount of rent, but this theory ignores this concept. This is third one. Fourth one, we have in reality no rent land is difficult to find. Why? Because whatever the land exists in reality, when we utilize that land in production process, we have to pay some reward for that in the form of rent. We cannot find the no rent land or say the marginal land concept given by the David Ricardo. This is the fourth one. And the fifth one, the ignorance of scarcity rent. Scarcity rent is that rent which arises due to the scarcity of land. But the David Ricardo theory of rent cannot explain about the scarcity rent. This is the fifth one. Next, sixth one, rent is not paid for the use of land alone. Okay, there are some other factors also exist or involves in the production process. We have to pay some reward for those factors also in the form of rent. It means those factors also get their rent, not only land. Okay, this is about say the explanation of the Recardian theory of rent. In our next video we will have a discussion on the modern theory of rent. Okay, thank you.